welcome to Rollin' with the Punches. I'm Jessie Punch, and I'm so happy you're here. Happy off-season, y'all. Happy off-season to all who celebrate. And if you don't celebrate, that's okay. Don't worry. We'll be back racing before we know it. Believe me, Daytona will be here. The Clash will be here, truly, before we know it. But I hope you are enjoying this little bit of downtime that we do have. Whether you work in the sport or you're just a fan of the sport, it is kind of nice to take a little bit of time to regroup. I know for me, I took these first couple days and got away on my own, went over to East Tennessee, just right over the mountains there. It is so beautiful this time of year with the leaves changing. It's getting cooler. Where I like to go stay, gorgeous spot. They have coffee in the morning. The bed is nice and comfy. They always have all of my favorite snacks. They even have a hot tub. I mean, this is like the getaway of all getaways. And if you're not picking up what I'm putting down here, I did go to my parents' house. Yes, I did. I packed up and I said, I'm going to go relax with mom and dad for a couple days. Honestly, though, like, at what age are you too old to just show up at your parents' house? Because it's not the age that I am. It's not, for sure. No, on a real note, I am very thankful that I have parents that are willing to let me come over and bring me in and help me regroup, recharge, get me all ready to, go be productive this off season. Because as much as it is an off season, I've got stuff I want to get done. So your girl's trying to make some good use of this downtime. I am excited, though, to see what we can get done. And I'm even more excited to bring you guys this week's interview. I thought about how I wanted to introduce this guest, and really, this is somebody that needs no introduction. And I don't even mean that from the, overused phrase of, this guy needs no introduction. This is America's crew chief, Larry McReynolds, to try to introduce the impact that this man has made on our sport. We don't have the time, y'all. I wouldn't even be able to do it justice if we did have the time. Larry Mack is a renowned crew chief in NASCAR. His accolades are unreal. Two-time Daytona 500 winning crew chief. The list of drivers and team owners and just crews and people that he's worked with is a list of Hall of Famers. This man has made tremendous impact on this sport, both on top of the box, but also even now. We get to hear from him as his role as an analyst with NASCAR on Fox. So even though he's retired, well, semi-retired, I should say, as a crew chief, we still get to see Larry Mack's impact week to week on NASCAR. But what I'm really hoping that you'll take away from this interview is who Larry Mack is as a person. Because Larry McReynolds, as much as he is America's crew chief, I mean, it's like a superhero, truly, he's also a real person. He's just like you and me. I mean, he's a dad, he's a friend, he's a son. He is a real human being who has endured some real life events, both at the highest of high and at some of the most heartbreaking tragedies that you could even possibly begin to imagine. And for someone to have gone through this and to learn what he's learned, I hope that we can sit and take away something from Larry Mack's ability to be vulnerable through this interview. He's an incredible storyteller. We all know that. But to hear him tell stories about his own life, I couldn't even put into words what this meant to me. And on top of that, if you aren't watching this episode on YouTube, highly recommend switching it over to video format of some capacity, because we did this interview over at the North Carolina Auto Racing Hall of Fame up there in Mooresville. If you know me, you know I love this place. I go over there all the time and hang out with my friends. They are so kind over there. And this place is phenomenal. The amount of history in this room is unreal. Auto racing of all different kinds. So I'm really painting this picture to say, I'm sitting in this room with Larry Mack, hearing these stories told by one of the best storytellers in our sport right now, and then surrounded by just eras and years and so much NASCAR history. It really was such a special opportunity for me, and I'm hoping that the emotion and that the passion translates through to y'all as well. So I'm going to do my best to just let this interview speak for itself. And without further ado, here is America's crew chief, Larry McReynolds. Larry McReynolds, welcome to Rollin' with the Punches.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Took us a while to make it work, but I'm glad we finally connected the dots.
You know what? It's because we were getting closer and closer to this fall. And, this is the time that you and I don't always get along. We don't see eye to eye once September hits.
It's not a good time to be a
but
Crimson
I think
Tide fan.
Yeah.
No,
I think we both agree to maybe just not talk football today.
No.
Okay.
I'm not a bandwagon fan, but I'm pretty concerned about Tuscaloosa right now. Quietly and below the radar, they've lost 3 of the last 4 football games going back to last year. Kalen DeBoer, and I'm still not ready to tar and feather Kalen DeBoer.
Okay.
But
you haven't picked your pitchfork up yet?
I haven't. I haven't
right.
gotten the back of the pickup with ball bats and heading to Tuscaloosa just yet. But he has already, in a season and 1 game, lost as many games to top 10 teams as Nick Saban did in 235 starts. There's a Larry McNugget for you. 4.
Holy cow.
Kalen DeBoer has already lost to 4 top 10 teams, and that's all Nick Saban lost his entire 235 starts.
That is an incredible. That's a 12-piece McNugget right there. Holy cow.
Yeah, it's
That's easy, but it's anybody that's going to try to follow up Saban is going to be obviously under a lot of scrutiny.
But he had an option of signing or not signing,
That's true.
It's like people that say a Cup driver, well, he's only 21 years old. I don't care. He's a Cup driver. He's a big boy now.
Welcome to the big leagues.
That's it.
It's the SEC. We don't play around there.
Well, the people in Tuscaloosa are not patient people. They don't want to hear anything about a building year, growing. They want to win football games, and right now we're not doing that.
The tides are turning. Pun intended.
No pun intended, right?
Yeah, no, that one was intended. Yeah. I appreciate that you laugh at my jokes, by the way, because not many do.
Not getting a lot of reaction out of them,
are
you?
One. Thanks. Yeah, it's a peanut gallery, tough crowd. But no, I appreciate not only you being here, of course, during such a busy time for you, but also I'm so excited to have you here because anytime we've worked together before has been so structured. We've been in a studio, at a desk, we're talking about points and playoffs and drivers, and now we just get to relax a little bit.
I left all my stat books in the car. I didn't bring any of them in.
I literally said this morning, I was on the phone with producer Joey, and I said, you think Larry Mack's going to show up with notes to talk about his own life?
Nope.
I was betting on it. I was betting on it just because
there's a lot of layers to it, but I don't need notes.
It's good to know. It's good to know. But not only that, just to be here at this place. What do you think about this place?
Yeah, it is cool. In fact, the event Stock for Tots that has been going on since I think the 80s maybe. We used to do it here, and of course it got such a big event. They do it normally the first Tuesday in every December. In fact, when I came in, she handed me the note that said Stock for Tots, I think December the 2nd, if you can be there. But it's gotten so big now we have to do it at the call it the Convention Center, the Charlie Mack Center in downtown Mooresville, just because it's gotten so big, so grown. But for a number of years we did it right here in this building.
It's amazing to think that you guys did it here because, I've only been involved the last 2 or 3 years. The line of people, when I show up, and I'm showing up,
and
early.
Where they come from.
Oh, my gosh, all over the place.
I mean, I always try to make a point, not to just sign their stuff.
Right.
How are you? Where's you home? And it's amazing. You'll talk to people that they drove down from Pennsylvania. And I said, you come down here to visit family? No, we came down here for this. And we're going back because I have to be at work in the morning. It's like, oh, my gosh, you drove down today, stood in this long line to get people's autograph, and you're going back tonight because you got to be at work tomorrow. That's what you call dedicated race fans.
That's love. They love this sport. Yeah, it's amazing. And that's the best part is getting to talk to other race fans because that's what we all are at the end of the day at our core. We love this sport. And it's funny you say that because I feel like through Stocks for Tots, I've made friends.
Yeah.
Like you see the same people every year or you see them and then you see them again at the racetrack and they come up and I have one guy that we talk Seattle Mariners baseball because we both knew Cal Raleigh growing up. So and he messaged me about Cal. It's just fun to make friends with other people.
Well, yeah, they come through, and I think the world knows what a devoted Crimson Tide fan I am. and 6 to 7 out of every 10 that come through will make a comment. I don't know if I want to talk about it. This Stock for Tots, hopefully, once again, using your phrase, hopefully the tide will turn between now and early December.
Turn the other way.
Yes,
Yeah,
the
make
right
a whole 360
way. The right
at that
way.
point. Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But yeah, the people that come and the money they have invested in die cast, it's like, I mean, they're pulling a wagon with all these die casts. I mean, just no telling how much they've got invested in those die casts. And, you know, there's not a Larry Mac die cast, but they'll bring different cards and different things. Do you mind signing all these? It's like, I have no problem signing all those. If you stood in this line, I'm not going to be the guy that just says one autograph. I'll sign as much as you've got and be happy to do it.
In the simplicity of what takes you 3 seconds, the impact that makes on other people is unreal, unfathomable. We have no idea how much that affects these other race fans, and it really is. It's like, if you can do that, why would you not? Why would you not take the time to do that?
Well, I say all the time, Jesse, there was a time when people had no idea, could care less who Larry McReynolds was, and there'll probably be a day come when they feel that same way. I'll just take advantage of it while they do care.
Stop. Quickly, you mentioned there's no Larry Mac diecast. You did at one point sell some America's Crew Chief T-shirts. Do you still have those available?
No, the company
for
that was
sale?
doing it, they no longer are doing any individual stuff. That was really a Brandon McReynolds project.
Gotcha.
I finally shamed him into at least giving me some of the royalties. I think Brandon was using me to have this little project, and it's like,
business, man.
Brandon, I haven't seen any of your loyalty checks. Oh yeah, Dad, I'll get those to you. He finally did get me a royalty check. But yeah, the company that was doing them, they now just do big bulk stuff. So you know, but it was fun while it lasted.
So what you're saying is, my friend would have to buy, like 50 of them. She couldn't just.
Oh,
get one.
I think it's a lot bigger number than that. I think we're talking up in the hundreds. Yeah,
got it.
So.
I don't have that many friends, so I'll have to tell her she can't get it. Yeah, that's unfortunate. But speaking of America's Crew Chief, that is your nickname, and I love to talk nicknames because racing is such a nickname sport. But before we do that, what is your full name? Your government name?
It's not even Larry. It's Lawrence Joseph McReynolds III. I'm actually a third. My grandfather was a senior. My dad was a junior, and then I became a third. And we almost made Brandon a fourth. But I could already see where society was going, and it was even getting complicated with my dad and I having the same name, with only the difference being junior and the third. And I think today, with so many things, being honed in on what your legal name is, we did name Brandon Lawrence Brandon. All of our kids go by their middle name. Brandon is Lawrence Brandon, goes by Brandon. Brooke is Candace Brooke and goes by Brooke, and Kendall is Mary Kendall, goes by Kendall. And that was not the goal or by design in the beginning of this whole journey. It's just the way it ended up. But even with Brandon having part of my name, the Lawrence and the McReynolds, there's been times like I had a flight that got canceled going to L.A. for the Clash a couple of years ago, and they had to move me to the morning flight. And when I checked in, the lady said, "Wait a minute. There's a Lawrence McReynolds that's already checked in." I went, "It's my son. He's actually Lawrence Brandon McReynolds." So I'm almost glad.
She's like, he checked in. He's sitting first class.
As much as I would have loved for him to been the fourth, I'm glad we didn't do it because it's even complicated with just sharing part of our name.
Oh, I can't even imagine. And then working in the same sport now too, all of the credentials and all of that. Yeah, no. Although I can see where Brandon, hey, use it when it works in your favor, I guess, Just kidding.
I think he wants to be known now as Brandon McReynolds, not Brandon McReynolds, Larry McReynolds' his son.
That's fair.
That's okay. I'm good with that.
That is fair. Well, you joked about people not knowing you at some point, which is clearly a joke. But, there will be a time at times where you are Brandon McReynolds' dad.
And I'm okay with that. Mm-hmm. I'm okay with that. I'll be just fine with that. No, not a problem at all.
Well, Lawrence Joseph McReynolds III.
Don't leave the third out. It sounds more formal.
Well, that's the most regal name I've ever heard. Lawrence is not a crew chief; he's a king. He's like the Duke of something. That's unreal.
Yeah,
so I can
it's
see
like our
where
Pope. He's Leo the 14th now, so I'm Lawrence the Third.
Lawrence the Third. Well, I can see then where Larry Mack is an obvious shortened nickname there, especially when you're working in a garage. But America's Crew Chief is the most notable nickname that people have given you.
I've always been a little, I don't know, hesitant, nervous about that. I've never promoted that whatsoever. Adam Alexander gave me that name.
That's what I was going to ask. When did it
start? No
start?
idea how, why. Almost have forgotten when. But Adam and I did so many shows together, most notably Race Hub, the show that was on Speed and then eventually FS1. And just out of the clear blue, he introduced me one night and we got Larry McReynolds, America's Crew Chief. It's like, where did that come from? And it's one of those things that just stuck. It's very flattering, but it's not one that I'm going to say myself. That's just not me. But Adam, he threw it out there and it stuck. And a lot of people, that's how I get introduced today. No longer do I get introduced as Larry McReynolds, 2-time Daytona 500 winning crew chief. It's Larry Mack, America's crew chief, but that's okay too.
That's all right. America loves you, Larry Mack. So you gotta do
Not
it
all
for
of
us.
America. I'll challenge that. There's a few that don't, but
That's right.
That's okay too.
Yeah, the people on X, but other than them, yeah. No, Adam Alexander had no idea what he was doing when he casually
he probably
said
thought
that.
it was going to go and then move away, but it's I can't even remember when it was. It was well before COVID, so I know it's been 5, 6, 7 years ago, but he tossed it out there one night on Race Hub and it just stuck.
I would love to go back and find that clip.
I would too, actually.
I'll see what I can do. I might have to go see if I can search through the archives a bit and find that, because that would be really cool to see.
It would be.
That's also a fun little quick lesson in the impact that you have in what you say on TV. You know this, how quickly something that you say can be. And
once you say it, you can't take it back.
That's right.
You cannot take it back. It
That's
doesn't
right.
matter if you apologize, if you say, I didn't mean to say that. Once you say it, it's out there.
Well, did you have any other nicknames? If Adam said I was going to introduce you by your nickname, what would you have told him it was?
Oh, I don't know that I ever have. I mean, I'm sure I got a lot of nicknames in the eyes of some fans that probably wouldn't be nice to say. But no, I don't know if it's just always kind of been Larry Mack. And that even goes way back when I was in Birmingham in school, was Larry Mack.
Well, I'm glad you bring that up because, you're America's Crew Chief. People have watched you for years, the success that you've had through your career, and now you're in their homes on TV, explaining the sport, teaching them the sport. Everybody feels that they know you. But the reality is, other than knowing that you're from Alabama, as much as we've worked together, I don't think I know much about how you really got started.
Yeah, it's an interesting and almost funny story because, again, I was an only child. And there was no racing background whatsoever in my family. I think my dad's brother, my uncle, I think he maybe did a little bit of dirt racing back in the day in Birmingham, but realistically, no racing, no race fans, no anything. And when I was still in grammar school, my aunt, my mom's sister, who was really more like a sister to me because she was the baby of the family and she was only 10 years older than I was. Her and my grandfather, my mom's dad and me, every Friday night, we would walk down the hill from their house to the local short track in Birmingham, BIR, Birmingham International Raceway. And we would watch the local races every Friday night, just the three of us. And then my aunt eventually got married. Her husband was a race fan. The four of us would go every Friday night. Well, I was probably a junior in high school, so I'm assuming it was probably 1975, 1976. They started a brand new division called a street stock hobby division. It was right in the middle of the year. And the first night, I think there were 2 cars, but it was as simple of a race car as you could build. It was like a 1-page set of rules. Took the windows out, you took the seats out, you could do a little work to the engine, to the suspension, you put the fuel tank up in the trunk, put a few roll bars in it, and you had a street stock hobby car. Well, my aunt also was a little bit of a hot rodder. She had this Chevelle that she tootled around in, and her husband was a mechanic. And the night that this division started, she told her husband, she said, I'd like to do this. I think I could do this. Well, he kind of chuckled and said, well, tell you what, go out and find you some sponsors and we'll build you a race car. Well, I'm sure a lot because of a female in a male's world, she went out and found more sponsors than we almost had room to put on the race car. So my racing career started in their basement, basically with my uncle building my aunt's street stock hobby car. And I didn't know a 3/4 wrench from a 3/4 bolt. But my uncle was very patient. It's like, look, I'm free help and I'm all you got. He was very patient and he worked with me and taught me a lot. She didn't have a lot of success. I'm not sure if it was just simply because we didn't know what we were doing or maybe not as talented as she needed to be. So when I graduated from high school in 1977, I had already made the decision I was not going to go to college, and I was working in a junkyard. I actually worked in a junkyard in the afternoon my junior and senior year. I'd get out of school at noon, go straight to the junkyard, work at the junkyard, and go home and do it all over again.
What do you do at a junkyard?
You pull parts. And trust me, in Birmingham, Alabama, in the summer, there's not a hotter place on earth than a junkyard, and in the winter, there's not a colder place on earth than a junkyard. So when I graduated, I started working there full time. And ironically, coincidentally, the junkyard that I worked for, Charles Finley Auto Parts, he sponsored a late model car that ran locally. And this team was going to run in Nashville, which was 3 hours, 2.5, 3 hours north of Birmingham. And Charles, we were going to close the junkyard at noon on Saturday. Excuse me. And Charles said, hey, I'm going to go to Nashville and watch the guys run tonight. You want to go with me? Sure, I'll go with you. So up to Nashville we went. And we go in the pits, and I'm just kind of this guy, but I kind of started helping them with this and helping them a little bit with this. And next thing you know, I'm helping them a lot. And when the race was over, the guy that owned it, a guy by the name of Bobby Ray Jones, said, hey, you ever get tired of working on your aunt's car? You come on out here. You can go to work. You can help us. He said, we're all volunteer, but he said, we win races and we have fun. Well, Monday night, I was sitting at their shop. And so that was really what kind of jump-started my career in Birmingham, was going to work for them. And I worked with Bobby Ray again as a volunteer. I still worked in the junkyard during the week to make a living. And there was many nights, Jesse, many days and many nights. I'd work at that junkyard all day long. I'd get off at 5 o'clock, run through a drive-through, go to Minor, Alabama, work on that late model sometimes all night long, run home, catch a shower, and back to the junkyard. I would do that on a very, very regular basis, and we were racing all over the Southeast during the weekend.
That's amazing. That's an incredible, I mean, that's what this sport's built on, is normal people coming together. Like you said, we're all volunteers, but we just love racing and finding camaraderie in this shared love. And it's the hard work. Of course you're working hard. You think you just mentioned the junkyard and how hot it is and how cold it is, but you didn't mention how hot the garage would get, because of course you're aware of it and how hard you're working, but you don't think twice about how hard you're working because it's what you love.
Well, it's one reason one of my pet peeves is when I hear people in the sport bitching about the sport. You know, how this is not good and how this is bad. And I realize everything can always be better. Anything can be better. What I do could always be better. I could always make more money, but it's not bad, because if it wasn't for NASCAR, I'd still be probably in Birmingham working in that junkyard, because here's a guy that barely got a high school diploma. If I hadn't convinced some of those teachers when I was a senior, you really want to pass me. You don't want to have to deal with me another year. You might want to think about really passing me and getting me out of here. I mean, again, I pinch myself. You know, most people go through life and they don't really have one fulfilling career. And to know Birmingham, Alabama barely has a high school diploma, and here I am sitting here at 66 years old, 45 years in the sport, and I actually have two fulfilling careers. Trust me, I have to pinch myself every day.
Did you ever play any other sports in high school?
So I did. I played Little League Baseball and enjoyed it. I was a catcher, and my dad was actually my coach most of my Little League career.
That's awesome.
And if you don't think playing under your dad, it's not easy. It's not easy because he makes it a whole lot tougher on you than he does all those other kids because he can get by with it. I played a little bit of football, but I knew early as a freshman in high school, football is not for me because about the second or third play of the first game as a freshman,
what position were you?
I was actually playing defensive lineman.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I separated my shoulder.
Oh.
And all I can remember is the coach screaming, "Get off the field, McReynolds. I'm not wasting a timeout on you." I went, you know what? Maybe this isn't cut out for me.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all. Hey, and football's one of those sports that the sooner you can decide it's not for you is usually the better.
Yeah, I was not that big of a guy. And it's like I would line up against some of these offensive linemen. I went, holy God, what was I thinking when I did this? And again, about the third play of the first game, next thing I know, this shoulder was down here and this shoulder was up here. And I said, something doesn't feel right here. But all I remember, still can hear that coach today screaming, "Get off the field."
It's amazing how that stuff will stick with you too. I have my competitive soccer coach. I can hear him in my head sometimes, the way he would yell my name and stuff. It's just funny. But hey, I wouldn't trade it for the world though. At the end of the day, it's what made me me. You know.
If it does, I always say if it doesn't kill you, it'll make you stronger.
That's right. Well, you mentioned, learning from your aunt, which is already such a unique way to be introduced to racing and just cars and motorsports in general. Both your aunt and your uncle, of course. But when did you really fall in love with this? Was it racing? Was it cars? Do you remember when it really, grabbed at your heart?
Even today, Jesse, I am not what you would call a car guy. I'm not a car collector. I mean, I'll go to a car show and I'll look at cars and that's pretty cool, but it's not like I'm like, ooh, wow. I've always enjoyed the competitive side of working on race cars. I never had a desire to drive a race car. That would have probably been not a good choice as well, because I'm the guy even today on I-77. I'm in the left lane, probably running 10 miles an hour under the speed limit, and more than likely I probably got my turn signal on. Linda all the time going, "Where you plan on turning anytime soon here on the interstate?"
Oh, no. And I'm the one behind you tailgating you going, "What is this guy doing?"
I'm that guy.
Sorry, I'm that girl. I'm sorry.
But I never had a desire to drive a race car. But I think when I went to work for that late model team and experience winning, we won some big races. We won the 1978 Snowball Derby, which is the biggest late model race there is, with Dave Mater III. We won a lot of big races. Mike Alexander eventually started driving it. We won some big races at Nashville. Again, we were racing all over the Southeast. I would leave that junkyard mid-afternoon on Friday, and we'd highball it, and depending on what the schedule was, we might run Birmingham on Friday night, go run Nashville on Saturday. We may go run Pensacola on Friday, Jackson, Mississippi on Saturday. We were racing all over the Southeast and getting back Sunday night. Once again, let's get home and catch a nap. Got to be at the junkyard on Monday morning. But I think eventually it was in 1980, working that junkyard, and I'd actually kind of elevated in the junkyard. I was no longer working the yard pulling parts. I was working the counter, selling parts, dealing with dealerships on stuff, and I enjoyed it. But again, I was 21 years old, and I was working at that junkyard, just trying to make a living, but I really enjoyed racing. And I started thinking in the early 1980, man, I really wished I could figure out how to make a living working on race cars. I really wished I could figure out how to get in NASCAR. It's not going to happen in Birmingham, Alabama, more than likely. But, I thought about it, but I didn't know how to pursue it. God works in mysterious ways. So July of 1980, again, I was working the parts counter. And we had a guy that worked the yard, and I stayed on him all the time. He'd pull the forklift up to the back of the building, and he'd leave the forks up. It's like, you got to lower the forks. Somebody's going to bust their head wide open. Mm-hmm. I'm that guy. So somebody had called about a part, and I put them on hold, and I said, I'll be right back to you. And I bailed out that back door to go check something, and I centered that fork.
Oh, no.
Busted my head wide open, a concussion. So anyhow, I'm at home, and, they wouldn't let me work for a week or so. And I'm at home, and I had read every magazine you could read. I had watched every soap opera you could watch. Just bored out of my mind.
You're reading the TV guide at that point? Like, okay.
You name it. It's like there's nothing else I could do. But I was a member of NASCAR because to run some of the races we ran with the late model, had to join NASCAR. And NASCAR used to put out a monthly newsletter. And it would come in a little form, maybe 4 or 5 pages. And on the very back page, every month, there was classifieds. People selling race cars, people wanting to buy race cars, people wanting to buy trailers. And I looked, and the very bottom ad was said, new Winston Cup team starting in Greenville, South Carolina, looking for mechanics and fabricators, call this number. Like, wow. So I debated about it. Finally, I called it. And actually, the gentleman that was starting the team, it was his daughter that answered the phone. The gentleman's name was Bob Rogers. His daughter was Dana Williamson. And we talked, and she actually knew who I was because they had been running late models, and we had raced against them a few times. So she took my information. We chatted for a little bit, and she kind of told me what they were going to do, and I told them kind of what my goals were, and I'm thinking I was probably one of about 10,000 calls. That'll never happen. I heal up from this injury. I'm back at work, and I came home. Of course, nobody even knew how to spell cell phone. Came home. I was living at home. My mom and dad were divorced. I came home one afternoon. I didn't go to the race shop for some reason, and my mom said, "Hey, Larry, there's some lady called today by the name of Dana Williamson. Her number's in there by the phone." I said, "What?" So it was a little bit too late to call. I called her the next day, and we chatted for a little bit. And she said, we're going to run the full schedule next year, 1981, but we're going to run a handful of races this year. I think.
In what series is this?
So they were getting ready to do a Cup Series program.
Got it. Okay, so this is they're going big. All right.
So she said, "Here's what we want to do. If you can make this work," she said, "We're actually coming to Birmingham to run a big late model race on Labor Day." And she said, "Then we're going to go back to Greenville. We're going to get ready to maybe run the Martinsville race, maybe the Charlotte race, maybe the Atlanta race." She said, "Why don't you come back with us when we leave Birmingham? You work with us a few weeks. We'll see if we like you. You see if you like us, and we'll go from there." So I had worked on the late model for Bobby Ray Jones that Mike Alexander was driving. I'd worked on it all week, getting it ready for this Labor Day race. And when the Rogers hauler came through the back gate, I shook everybody's hand, Mike, Bobby Ray, the guys working on the car, and I went down there and started helping them. And it might be the only time I've ever worked on one car and was pulling for another, because I knew I'd worked all week on that 84 car, and here I am down here on this 37 car, and lo and behold, the 84 car sat on the pole and won the race. Never been happy for a competitor to win a race except that one time. And anyhow, after the race, I went back to Greenville, South Carolina. And I'd worked up there about 2 or 3 weeks, and Dana called me in the office, and she said, "Look, this is a no-brainer. If you want a job, you've got a job." And I said, "Oh, okay." And we talked about money and different things. And I still even though that was excited out of my mind, it's like, I'm 21 years old. I'm leaving my family, and I'm going to move from Birmingham, Alabama to Greenville, South Carolina. I said, let me fly back home, and let me make sure on some things. I said, but I want to make sure you know I'm not turning it down. I just want to take care of some things.
And what was the job at the time?
Just as a mechanic,
Just a mechanic,
on this Cup Series program that they were starting.
But yes, as an only child leaving home, you said you were with your mom.
Yeah, my mom and
divorced.
dad
I
were
can
divorced.
Imagine that's not an
And
easy
so
decision.
I go back home, and I was looking for somebody that could give me a neutral opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew Donnie Allison. So I went out to Donnie's late model shop there in Hueytown. And I chased him around the late model car for about an hour, it seemed like. And finally, Donnie being Donnie said, "What do you need? What do you want?" I explained it to him. And you know Donnie, when he wants to make a point, love him to death. Love him to death today. But when Donnie wants to make a point, he gets about that close to your face and he pokes you in the chest. And he said, "I tell you what, boy, you need to do it." But he said, "I'll tell you one damn thing. You better find that checkered flag that y'all went out there at Birmingham the other night with Bobby Ray's late model car, and you better find it and hold on to it, because it's going to be a long damn time before you ever see another one." And I'll spin it ahead for a brief moment. That was September of 1980 when I won my first race at Watkins Glen with Ricky Rudd in 1988. First person I thought about was Donnie Allison. I went, damn, that man was right. He was so right. But I made the decision to take it, and my mom and dad, they looked at me and said, "This is the craziest, stupidest thing we've ever heard anybody do. You'll be back in 6 months. You'll be broke and you'll be hungry. We'll feed you. We're not going to bail you out of debt." And I said, "You know, I've always respected what you two have told me. You probably are right, but I got to go try it." And 45 years later, I'm still here in the Carolinas, still digging. And my mom and dad became the biggest race fans on earth eventually.
It's usually how that works. Yeah. Once they see, wow, what a story. That is unreal. And going back to what you started with, when you said God works in crazy ways, 1,000,000%. God had his hand
God
on
bless that
every-
guy that kept leaving that forklift head high.
So glad he was an idiot. Yeah. That's
But
amazing.
when I flew back to Birmingham and talked to Donnie and talked to my mom and dad, made the decision, went out and talked to Bobby Ray and talked to Mike Alexander, and everybody was excited. My passenger car was a 1971 Ford Pinto, green. And when I say green, you've never seen a green like this on earth. There's no green on earth like that Pinto. And when I hooked the U-Haul behind it with my stuff, before I ever put anything in it, the back of it was already dragging the ground. So
It's a long drive.
I think from Birmingham to Greenville, South Carolina, should probably be a 5 to 6 hour drive. I think it took me probably 10 to 12 hours just because that little old Pinto would only go so fast pulling that U-Haul.
You had a lot of time to think about this decision that you made.
Oh, yeah. But it's one I made that I've never looked back on, never second guess.
So you moved to Greenville working as a mechanic. When is the first time that you were presented with the idea of being a crew chief?
So that's even an interesting story. My life is so full of interesting stories, unique stories. So I worked for Bob Rogers, 1981, and we went through a few drivers. The original driver was a local driver by the name of Don Sprouse, and that was kind of the whole deal behind starting this team. Bob Rogers was a local businessman, and him and Don ran late models together, and they were best friends, and they decided they wanted to go to the top level of racing and do a cup deal. Don had never run more than really Greenville, Pickens, and a few other tracks, and he was so far out of his league. Great guy, but so far out of his league, and I think him and Bob realized it very early. And then the irony, and I had nothing to do with it, they actually hired Mike Alexander to come drive that car, the late model driver I've been working with in Birmingham. And then Tim Richmond ended up finishing the year out because his deal with that 99 Uno car had run dry. But anyhow, I worked for Bob Rogers and Rogers Leasing Racing for the full 81 season. And in 1982, they started the season. We started with a bunch of different drivers. Tom Sneva drove it some because he had the Simon I sponsorship. He was only running limited races. Neil Bonnet drove it some because Warner Hodgson, who was sponsoring Neil, wanted Neil to run the full schedule, and Neil was driving for the Wood Brothers, and they would only run a limited schedule. So we had kind of a hodgepodge of drivers. And then, ironically, Bob even got Donnie Allison to run a few races. We almost, and I was still a crew member, we almost won the Talladega race in May of that year, and the windshield caved in. We used to run glass windshields, and the windshield caved in.
Wouldn't that have been a funny, turnaround?
At Talladega, of all places. But anyhow, Bob finally, the Simonized deal had went south. The Hodgson deal had kind of went south. And Bob came to the race. There was only 3 employees. We only had 3 full-time employees. We had a lot of volunteers that helped at night and went to the track, but there was only 3 full-time employees. Bob came in the shop the week leading into the Coke 600 and said, guys, this is it. He said, I can't do it no more. The funding has run out. I've run out. He said, Coke 600 is going to be our last race. So anyhow, Bob came back to me a few days later, and he said, let's get through the 600. Yeah, I'm shutting the doors, but I want to talk to you. Okay. So we went and ran the 600, came back, and Bob called me in his office, and he called me Baby Boy. I think
That's a nickname.
Well, yeah, I guess I said I never had a nickname, so there's another one I get. But I think what had happened, Bob had 2 daughters. And because I was up there by myself, I kind of became the son he had never had. I mean, I would go, if I didn't come back to Birmingham for the holidays, I'd go spend Thanksgiving with them, any other holiday. So I think I kind of became the son that Bob never had. But anyhow, he said, here's the deal, baby boy. He said, yeah, I'm done racing. But he said, you've got a job as long as you want it. I mean, he owned a lease company, car lease company, he owned a body shop. But he said, whatever you decide to do, what I want you to do for me is help me get everything prepared for an auction. And I said, yeah, absolutely. But in my mind, I went, you know what? I didn't leave Birmingham and come to Greenville to pursue a NASCAR career, to rent cars, or to work in a body shop. As much as I was flattered that he said, I've got a job as long as I want one, I'm going to get him ready for his auction and we'll go from there. So once again, how strange things work out. We had a 2-day auction, and this was maybe in mid-late June of 1982. Mark Martin, who was a rookie in the Cup Series, was running the full schedule. Him and his mom, Jackie, came to the auction both days. Halfway through the second day, Jackie Martin, Mom's mom, who was kind of running his race team, kind of came around a corner and said, hey, what are you going to do? I said, Jackie, I don't know. I said, I promised Bob I would get him through this auction. He's told me I still got a job, but I moved up here to race. She handed me a card and said, call me the first next week, and I want you to come up and see me. So I said, okay. So I got him through the auction. Everything was good. And I went to visit Jackie at the shop. The shop was right there by Charlotte Motor Speedway.
Oh, okay.
On the corner of 29 and Moorhead. So I went up there and met with her. Her office was upstairs in the shop, really small race shop. And I went up there and met her. And she talked a little bit about what their goals were and what they were going to do. And she said, Mark wants you to be his crew chief. I went, Jackie, whoa. I'm 22 years old. I've only been in the sport a year and a half. She said, don't worry. Mark will make all the calls. You just need to make sure what Mark wants done gets executed. Okay, if y'all are in it, I'm in it. So I was Mark Martin's crew chief the second half of his rookie season. Herb Nabb was coming in, setting the cars up. Again, it worked exactly what she said. I just had to execute. I was making some of the calls on race day, back then calls were pretty simple. The caution comes out, you come get 4 more tires and fuel. It didn't matter where you were. And if you've run as far as you can on fuel, you pit for 4 more tires and fuel. It wasn't a complicated thing to call a race back in the early 80s. So she came to me about 3 or 4 weeks before the end of 82, and I knew this deal had about run dry. And it had been a rough year, even before I came there. And, I mean, our first race together, though, was Pocono. We finished 10th, so it's like, okay, this is not horrible. 10th in 1982 wasn't great. 10th.
That's the first race you ever crew chief?
Yeah.
Top 10?
Yeah, 10th,
good start.
10th in 82, though, would be like running 25th today, So
It's all right. We don't have to.
So never let the facts get in the way of a good story, right?
Exactly.
So she came to me about 4 weeks before the end of the season, and she said, Larry, we can't go any further beyond the end of the year. I said, I kind of was smelling this coming. And she said, but we're going to see the end of this year out. I said, Jackie, the last race of the year is Riverside. I said, that's a pretty expensive deal. I said, why don't you lease Mark a ride to finish out the Riverside race, to finish out the season? She said, nope. We started out to do this whole season. We're going to do this whole season come hell or high water. Because I even told her, I said, I'll go out there with him, whatever you need me to do. She said, nope. We're going to finish this season out. Mark Martin racing the O2 car. I said, okay, there's a week off before Riverside. Let's drive. Let's drive to California. Let's save that expense. So basically, a little over a week out from Riverside, we piled up between the hauler and a Suburban, and off to Riverside we went. And damn if we didn't finish 5th out there. So at least we ended on a high note.
Wow.
Yeah.
When you say we, you and Mark?
Mark and our crew, I think our team, Mark's dad drove the hauler out there, and a couple of guys rode in the hauler with Mark's dad, Julian. And then there was, I think, including Mark and his girlfriend, I think there were 6 of us in that Suburban. And off to Riverside we went.
That's a heck of a road trip. Wow.
It's not one I would want to make on a regular basis.
Yeah, no, I can't imagine. But I bet that ride back was pretty.
To finish
pretty
5th.
sweet.
And I think we were probably going to finish 3rd. And we had a flat tire on the green. This, once again, goes to show you the competition level in the early 80s. People say they won't race in the way they used to be. No, you don't. No, you don't. We had a flat tire, had to pit under green, and still finished 5th.
Minor details once
It's
again.
it.
Yeah, minor details. They don't need to worry about that. That, again, another incredible story. And going back to what you said about, this family calling you baby boy, like that is what sticks out to me the most. Of course, it's the God always has his hand in everything, but it's the relationships then that he brings us into that take you to the next step. And that's what we hear so much in racing is it's not a networking sport. It's a relationship building sport. We spend so much time together, so much time on the road. You have to work so hard to just get to where you need to be, get to the next step, that the only people that really can truly understand that are the ones that are also in it with you. And I think that camaraderie is huge.
I have so many young men and women that come to me even today, and they want to be in NASCAR. And they ask me, how can I get started? And I wished I could say, here's the blueprint. Here's the steps. But unfortunately, it's not like becoming a doctor. It's not like becoming a plumber. You don't go to school and get a diploma and now you're guaranteed a job. It's timing. It's right place and right time, just like my timing of headbutting a forklift. And I just tell them, just don't give up on it. You're going to get more doors closed in your face and you'll get so discouraged. But somewhere, somehow, some way, the timing will be that door will open. And once you get your foot in the door, you're going to be okay. It's just getting your foot in it. I wished so much, because I knew how bad I wanted to get in 1980. And other than Donnie Allison telling me I was a dumbass, nobody was giving me a real direction on how to make this work. So I wished I did, but it's timing, right place, right time.
Yeah, thank goodness you didn't listen, right? But You're right. I mean, it's timing and it's the people, and there's so many great people that work in this sport that it's the combination of the two. There's you look back at some of the relationships, some of the teams, some of the pairings that happened in our sport over the years, and as many great people as there are, some of these were just magic. You couldn't pair everybody up the way that you did in certain ways, and I think I'm one of what comes to mind for me is your 2018 move over at Roush Yates,
Yeah.
and I mean that was special. There was just something different about that team. What was it about that operation that made it so special?
When I went there, Davey and Robert had been hammering on me for well over a year to come there. And I just couldn't find my way to leave Kenny Bernstein in the 2016 because one, I had kind of built that team from the beginning. I was employee number one. And I mean, when we first started that team, it was me and my wife. Linda was helping me paint the floors and book travel, and we started hiring people. And Kenny had taken a chance on me and made me a crew chief for a major team with a major sponsor with major manufacturing support when I'd only been in the sport, 6 years. And the closest I'd ever been to Victory Lane was walking by it on pit road. But he felt something, he saw something, and heck, I was texting with Kenny the other day because he will always be special to me because he believed in me and gave me an opportunity that probably nobody else in that garage area would have given me. But I just knew that we were never going to, and it wasn't because Kenny was shortcutting anything. We just couldn't never get all the pieces in place together. To win multiple races, to contend for championship, every I has to be dotted, every T has to be crossed 8 times. And we would get the arrow right, the driver would be what we needed, and then we wasn't right with the chassis. And then we'd get the chassis right, and the driver would be on, and we were off on air. We just never could get it all pieced together at one time, and I just knew this. And finally came to grips with it in early 91. And when Robert Yates called me after the Atlanta race and said, I'm going to make a change in the morning with crew chiefs, I know where your frame of mind is, but I had to call and ask. And I said, when and where do you want to meet?
Wow.
And it was a really strange time of the year because back then we were only running, I think, 29 races. We had a lot of off weeks. In between Atlanta and the next race was going to be Darlington, we had a 2-week off period. So it gave me an opportunity to go to Robert Yates Racing, get to know the guys, see what they kind of had for race cars, and then we were able to go test at Darlington. And I never will forget it. Once again, even in 1991, we didn't know how to spell cell phone. Only cellular phones was somebody that had one in their car that was about this big. But I remember we went down there and tested. I think it was a 2-day test. And Davey went out and made about an 8 or 10 lap run. And when he came in and I lowered the window net and we started talking, it's like, holy crap, there's something special here. And I remember I couldn't wait till lunchtime to go find a payphone and call Linda and went, as much as I was second guessing this is going to be really, really good. It just clicked. It just clicked and I'm a big believer, you can't fabricate, you can't even create chemistry. I think you can make it better, but it has to be there from the beginning. And it was there from the minute I lowered that window net after that first run at Darlington all the way through until, unfortunately, he got killed in that helicopter in July of 93.
I've heard you mention before both of y'all's background being from Alabama was a big part of your ability to relate to each other. What qualities do you think that you both had that really kind of was that natural connection?
Really and truly, a lot of people connected Davey and I because of the Alabama connection. But I really never got to know Davey because about the time I moved to the Carolinas to start my NASCAR career, Davey was really just getting started
Right.
at the local racetrack. Again, as I said earlier, the only Allison I really knew, and it was a very mild acquaintance, was Donnie. Just we'd cross paths and chatted a little bit here and there. But I think there were so many things that connected Davey and I. One, we were both very determined individuals. All you needed to tell him or I was, you can't do that. And that just motivated us. I think one, because he was a hard-headed Allison and I was a hard-headed Irishman. And all you need to do is tell us that's not possible, you can't do that, and we'll show you different. And Robert Yates just complimented the two of us. And I think so many other things connected us is our wives became really close friends. Our families were very similar. They had Krista and we had Brooke, were very close in age. They had Robbie, we had Brandon, very close in age. This was obviously well before Kendall was ever born. We both were Catholics, our families were Catholics, and there were many times after final practice on Saturday, we didn't stay in motorhomes, stayed in motels, not even a hotel, motel. But we would find a local Catholic church to go to Saturday evening mass, our families, and then we'd go out and have dinner together. Whenever we would run Charlotte or North Wilkesboro, Davy and Liz, the kids would come stay with us. And we just had this connection. Even I talked about Robbie and Brandon. We had them baptized together. And Linda and I are Robbie's godparents, and Davy and Liz are Brandon's godparents. So really the connection that Davy and I had as a driver and crew chief was really a small part of our relationship. But I don't find it, I never had a single race car driver that I didn't get along with. I never found anybody I couldn't get along with. I'd figure their personality out, and it's like, okay, this is how I need to kind of approach this driver and deal with this driver. I made it a point not to be set in my ways, even though, again, as I said, a hard-headed Irishman. I knew if I wanted to be successful, I better figure out his strengths and his weaknesses and work to those and work with those.
It's part of that leadership.
Exactly. But I don't find it coincidental, Jesse, that the most success I had as a crew chief was with drivers I had the best relationship with. Davey Allison and Ernie Irvin. It wasn't far behind it, and that's obviously the two drivers that I had the most success with. I had a great relationship with Dale, with Mike Skinner, with Ricky Rudd, but I didn't have the success with them that I did with Davey and Ernie.
Wow, it's like there's an added layer of love, of respect, of desire to want to succeed, because this isn't just a teammate, this is a family member.
You spend more time, especially back then, spend a whole lot more time with your race team and your driver than you did your family. A lot more.
It's been a lot of meals with your driver, and then Larry or Linda Max sitting at home. It's tough.
Or at the motel, am I ever going to come back where we can clean up and go get some dinner and feed these kids and get them to bed?
Wow. A little different than they do nowadays.
A lot different. It's one of the things that led me to I was one of the first crew chiefs to get a motorhome, is because drivers were starting to get them. And it wasn't that I needed a motorhome, but the garage was closing on Friday night and Saturday night. I'd go out to Ernie's motorhome and sit there and go over a game plan for the next day. I'd leave the racetrack 7, 8 o'clock, still in a dirty uniform from the day. Linda and the kids back at the hotel wondering, when is he going to get here? And I'd finally get there. Let me jump in the shower. We'll run, grab something quick. And it's like, there's got to be an easier way. Let's just bite the bullet. We'll get us. It was probably more like a motor, wasn't a motor coach. It was a motor home. That's okay. But that way I at least can buy some time for me and my family, that we can still be together and I can still accomplish the things I need to do with my driver.
When you talk about your relationship, not only with Davey, but just that team all around, and the family and Liz and their children, it adds another layer of understanding then losing Davey, how difficult that had to have been. Had you ever experienced, let me preface this. Grief is something that I talk with a lot of people about because I think that it is a really, really difficult thing to have to deal with. But at the same time, people that have experienced grief understand each other on a completely different level. Grief changes a person.
Yeah.
But it's, like you said earlier about getting into NASCAR, there's no rule book, there's no guidebook of how to navigate grief.
Yeah.
Had you experienced anything like that, grief like that before that?
I had to some degree. There was a short track racer, probably one of the best in the country, Butch Lindley. And of course, his son's Marty Lindley. That's a crew chief at Junior Motorsports, actually with Connor Zillich right now. Butch was probably as good a short track racer as there was from Greenville, South Carolina.
I was going to say, I raced in the Greenville Pickens area because I have some family friends that knew Butch growing up.
Oh, yeah.
Small world.
So in between that Mark Martin venture in 82 and King Racing in 86, there were a lot of in and out of race teams. But I was working for a gentleman by the name of Bobby Hawkins, Carolina 2 Racing, in 1985. That's actually the team and what equipment was there that Bernstein came in and bought out to move into 86. So we were running a very, very, very limited schedule. And we had built this super double throwdown short track Cup Series car. And we were going to run, this was in the spring. It was me and one other guy working on it. We were going to run Wilkesboro and Martinsville, kind of in Butch's wheelhouse, short tracks. And we were getting ready to go test North Wilkesboro, and we were at Mike Laughlin's, who built a lot of the chassis for NASCAR, for Cup teams. We were at his shop finishing the car out. And I called Butch, and I said, Butch, we're going testing next week. I think Wilkesboro was in the following week. I said, I really need you to come here. This was like maybe a Wednesday. I said, I really need you to come here and make sure we got the seat, the steering, the pedals, everything like you want. He said, early Friday morning, Tanya and Jones, his wife, Tanya's daughter, the three of us are coming right through Simpsonville, headed to Bradenton, Florida. I'm running a late model race down there this weekend. He said, can I come by there on my way down? I said, absolutely. It's not like we're running out of stuff to do. So they stopped. We fit him. He spent a couple hours, fit him for the seat, everything for him. And that was Friday morning. We were working night and day on this race car. We were going in 5 or 6 in the morning, working to midnight at night. And we had worked on Saturday, and I had gotten home 12 or 1 o'clock on Saturday night. And somewhere in the middle of the night, our phone rang, our house phone. And I don't remember who it was because I was almost in a state of shock, the call I was getting. Butch had spun at the racetrack and hit the wall, driver's side, and his head hit the wall. It didn't kill him, but he was in a coma, and a coma he never came out of. And he eventually passed away. I think it was either 1989 or 1990. So, yes, different type of deal, but I had experienced it. But the deal with Davey, when we lost him on July 13th of 93, I not only lost the driver that I had so much success with, I lost my best friend. He was absolutely my best friend. Again, as I said a while ago, our relationship as a driver and crew chief was that. Our relationship as two guys, friendship was that. And, every time we would go to the racetrack and you would buckle a driver in a race car, you knew there was a risk, but you never expected to get a call on a Tuesday afternoon that he had been seriously injured in a helicopter crash, because we had won, we had a phenomenal 1992 season. We won 5 races, including the Daytona 500. We won the All-Star race, came so close to winning the championship and lost it at Atlanta, got caught up in a wreck. And we were pretty optimistic about 93. Daytona didn't go so well, but we did win race number 2 at Richmond, which ended up being Davey's last win. But we had kind of gotten off with our race cars. And I think it was what I preach all the time. People don't get off in racing. Your competitors just get better, and you stay the same. And that's what happened to us between 92 and 93. We stayed the same, and everybody else caught us and was better. And we built a new car in the late spring of 93, and we took it to Loudon, New Hampshire. And we actually were leading that race, and a caution came out with about 20 to go. And I knew we were dead in the water because our car was not good on the fire-off. It was not good on the short run, but it was bad to the bone on the long run. And I knew a 20-lap run, they were going to eat our lunch. And we ended up finishing third to Rusty Wallace, who won the race. Mark Martin ran second. But we knew we had figured some stuff out. And we flew with Davey. Davey would pick Robert, myself, some of the crew members up. He'd fly from Hueytown, pick us up in Charlotte. We'd fly to the race. Then he'd drop us back off in Charlotte, and he'd fly on to Hueytown. And it just was, you look back now and you go, how weird this was, because Davey loved flying as much as he did driving a race car. And Bobby was on the plane with us. Eli Gold was on the plane with us. And when we got on the plane in Concord, New Hampshire, Davey said Sam Mance was Davey's pilot. But Sam would just fly right seat with Davey. Mm-hmm. Davey said, Sam, you fly the plane. Dad, you sit up there with Sam. I'm going to sit back here with my guys. So Sam flew the plane. Bobby sat up right seat. Eli Gold, myself, Robert, Davey, Raymond Fox, we sat in the back, cut up a little bit, excited about what we'd hit on at Loudon. Couldn't wait to go to Pocono, which was the next race. So Davey and I always talked around noon on Monday. You know, I'd let him kind of think about what had happened. I'd kind of think about what had happened. And then we'd talk on Monday at noon, and we'd start talking about the race coming up. Well, just as we were about to get off the plane in Charlotte, Davey was dropping us off. He said, Larry, can we talk on Tuesday? He said, because I want to fly the helicopter up to Talladega tomorrow. David Bonnet, Neil's son, is testing an ARCA car, and I want to go up there and see if I can help him. Absolutely. Call me on Tuesday. So once again, one of those moments, I'll never forget it as long as I live. It was about 2 or 3 o'clock on Tuesday or on Monday. Raymond Fox and I, which was my car chief, we were right outside the offices on the surface plate setting the Pocono car up. And Robert came out the office door, and he looked like he had seen a ghost. He was white as a sheet. He almost couldn't even speak. And he said, come in here a minute. So we go in his office. He shuts the door. He said, Davey's in trouble. And I'm thinking, what the hell has he done now? Who is he pissed off now? He's an Allison, and he has said something that didn't fly. He said, no, he's crashed that helicopter. So I guess what my point was, you buckle those race car drivers in for practice, for qualifying, for race, and you think about it for a split second. He could get hurt. You never expect to get a call on a Tuesday afternoon that he had been injured. But I think what got me through it, Jesse, was Davey was a very devoted guy to God. And you know, I'd catch him in the race car before practice, before qualifying, before the race with his head down, saying a little prayer. But he had a saying, and that saying right now, it's on a plaque in my office. But he had a saying, there's nothing that can come my way today that God and I can't handle together. And that's what got me through the Davey Allison deal right there.
There is nothing that will come my way that God and I can handle
together. And that's what got me through it.
That's powerful.
Yeah. Because I was ready to give it up. Mm-hmm. It's like I'd went through the Butch Lindley deal in the mid-'80s. Here was my best friend. We're winning races hand over fist. Life is good. And now he's gone. Mm-hmm. And I could care less about him being gone as my race car driver. He was my best friend. Mm-hmm. And now I'll never see him again. And I remember, you know, the minute we got the word, Robert and Carolyn Yates, Robert's wife, and Melinda and I, Felix Sabatas was good enough to loan us his jet, and we flew to Birmingham. And this is eerie too. Davy was at the hospital that I was born at, Caraway Methodist Hospital, there right outside of downtown Birmingham. And I remember it was really touch and go, but I talked to Red Farmer. You know, Red was in the helicopter with him, and Red was in the hospital. Red was fine. He was injured. And I remember talking to Red. I went up and saw him in his room. And when I left that room, I went, there ain't no way Davy's going to make it. Red just pretty much told me the whole deal. And I remember Liz coming out there a few times and saying, do you want to go back and see him? I went, Liz, I don't. I want to remember him. Mm-hmm. How he got off that airplane. Mm-hmm. I don't want to see him laying on a table. I want to remember we had a beer together and how I got off that airplane and we said goodbye.
And that's how he would want you to
Exactly.
remember him.
I'm sorry, getting a little. It's
No.
still tough this many
Larry,
years later.
First of all, never apologize.
Yeah.
Especially for sharing
Yeah.
your emotion, because it's why I bring up grief. Like, grief is one of the few things that can really connect us as people. And as terrible and tragic as it is, you sharing is really making a difference. It is.
And then when he passed away, the four of us actually flew back to Charlotte, and Pocono was the next week, and his funeral was going to be on Thursday. So there was a big plane that was chartered that flew a bunch of the NASCAR community, including his whole race team, all of us back down for the funeral. And you talked about the 28 team, Robert Yates Racing. We were small, very small group, all fairly young. And we had the funeral. We buried him on Thursday. We flew back to Charlotte, and we all gathered at Robert and Carolyn's house, just like a family gathers after you bury a loved one. Mm-hmm. And we all made the decision, not just Robert, not just me, not Robert and me. Our race team made the decision, we're not going to go to Pocono. Because, one, it's not that we're lazy and we don't want to go run Pocono. And I'm pretty sure, no, I'm real sure, Davey Allison was looking down on us going, you bunch of weak dogs. I cannot believe y'all are not going to Pocono and race. But you know what? He wasn't the one down here having to deal with it. And we just didn't feel like it was fair to whoever we would put in this car to go to Pocono and us still grieving Davey mm-hmm. Allison's losing Davey. How fair would that be? How safe could it possibly be? So we made the decision to skip Pocono.
It's one of those few times where you have put yourself and your personal health and what you need to do for you over racing, which is hard to do in this industry with
racers
as much as you devote to it.
That's what racers mm-hmm. do. And Davey Allison, the reason I know he was looking down going, you bunch of weak dogs, is because I go back to August of 92. So we were going to Michigan to run, and Davey and Liz had already went up there early in the week because they had some friends up there, LeFears, that owned some dealerships. And we were flying out on Thursday afternoon. And we had worked at the shop until about lunchtime, and then we all went to our houses to have some lunch and clean up, see our wives and families before we went back to the airport. And when I got home, Linda said, you need to call Robert right now. She said, I don't know what's wrong, but he didn't sound good. So I called Robert. He said, how quick are you coming back to the shop? I said, well, I just got home, but I said, I won't even shower. I'll just change clothes and I'll be right back there. What had happened, Clifford had been killed in Davey's younger brother in a practice qualifying crash in Michigan. So we couldn't get in touch with Davey. Didn't know how to get in touch with him, couldn't get in touch with him. It's like Robert said, we just need to fly up there and figure out what we're going to do. So we flew up there. We were staying at the Hampton Inn in Ann Arbor and trying to find Davey. I'm trying to call this person, finally got in touch with him. And I said, Davey, I don't even know what to say. I'm so sorry. I said, okay, what do you want us to do? Do you want us to call Jim Sauter to maybe come and run this car to at least practice and qualify? And he said, whoa, 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 whoa. He said, let me tell you something. I got a hole in my heart that burns when the wind blows. But I'm here to do a job. I'm going to do my job. We're going to win this race on Sunday, and then we'll go to Hueytown, and we'll take care of my brother. It's like, damn, he's stronger than us. He's stronger than we are. We're ready to put somebody else in the car and do whatever we need to do. This cat's ready. And I can't imagine that next day when that track opened for practice, less than 24 hours later, he drove through 1 and 2, the same wall that Clifford had hit and lost his life. But that was Davey Allison.
Oh my gosh. It says a lot about who Davey was.
But think about Bobby and Judy Allison.
I can't.
They lose a son in a crash at Michigan. They lose a son in a helicopter crash. And we go to the same, of course, Bobby's passed away now, but we go to the same church that Bobby and Judy would go to, St. Therese here in Mooresville. And I used to catch myself. Bobby always sat in the same spot, the same pew, 2 rows back from the front, every 10 o'clock mass every Sunday. And I would just catch myself watching him going, how did he do it? How does he get through it? But I know how. He lived by that same motto his son did.
And again, it goes back to that grief and how do you get through it? Well, sometimes it's just seeing people in your life that are getting through it. They're strong. And that's why I said earlier about never apologize, because what you don't even realize, you going through something and dealing with it is somebody else's perception of strength. And that might be what they need to see to know that it's hard,
it was a
but you're gonna
strength that
be
was
okay.
artificial for a little while, because I'm telling you, Jesse, I was ready to hang it up. It's like this life's life. You get close to somebody and then you lose them. You know eventually you're going to lose everybody to a natural death. But it's like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. But Davey Allison was my motivation to keep digging.
Did you break the news to Davey that Clifford had passed?
No, he already knew.
Okay.
No, he already knew.
Okay.
And like I say, you almost don't even know what to say. I didn't want to just jump right into what do you want us to do. We talked a little bit about Clifford. We're sorry this has happened and anything we can do, but what do you want us to do about this weekend? And he set me straight real fast.
Wow. You talk about Davey looking down on you guys after he had passed. In an attempt to relate, I lost my best friend a couple of years ago. And so that was the first time that I really had experienced a grief like that, from, to your point, an unexpected grief that I the last time I saw her, I would have bet money that I was going to see her again.
You never think about it.
Never think about it. And however, through this whole experience, it has taught me how much they are actually really with us throughout our lives. And it's crazy. I mean, I have some of the craziest stories sometimes where I've said it before. I feel like I'm testing my faith because I sit here and I go, man, if you're really with me, God or Macy or whatever up there, like if you're really with me, you would show me, and I've been in Buffalo, New York, one time, and I go get my rental car. I'll spare you the details because it could be a long story, but I'll make it short. I go to get my rental car, and in Buffalo, New York, it is from Hilton Head Island, South Carolina, which is where Macy lived and passed and is buried. And I'm sitting there thinking, I am in Buffalo, New York. And I remember I sat at the steering wheel and I said, that's almost impossible. And I had that moment where I went, damn it, that's what I get for trying to test my faith and test you guys. But I say all that to say, I firmly believe, and I can remember those moments. Have you ever had those moments through your career where maybe you feel like they're with you, or you can even just reflect on your relationship and feel like what you've learned from them helped guide you?
I do, because obviously when we lost Davey, we came back and we started racing, the week after Pocono, and of all places, had to go to Talladega. And it was such trying time because, we had Robbie Gordon in the car here at Talladega, had another driver in the car, I think at Watkins Glen. It was like kind of the flavor of the month. And it was just testing me to no end, dealing with different drivers. And I remember many nights, especially at the racetrack, going, Davey, you got to help me, man. You got to help me do something here. And I never will forget when I was really getting discouraged, still grieving heavily about losing Davey, but trying to move forward for this race team, and had just about to reach the end of my rope. And again, would pray and talk to Davey, you do something, just something, help me. And lo and behold, when I was feeling that the strongest, Robert called me in his office and said, we got an opportunity maybe for Ernie Irvin to come drive this 28 car. He said, I think we're getting things close. He said, Ford's all in, Texaco Havlin's all in. He said, we got to get him out of his contract with Morgan McClure. And Lake Speed was driving the 28 car. Lake was doing a good job. Lake was exactly what we needed. He was a very upbeat, positive person. He didn't bitch, moan, and complain about a whole lot. Again, just very positive, which is exactly what we needed as a race team. And I felt bad for Lake because we had went to Darlington and tested, and Lake would get around Darlington really good. It was just his type of track. It's the only place he ever won a cup race was Darlington. And we were really good at the test. And then between the test and going back to race is when this whole deal happened. I felt really bad for Lake, but I knew in my mind Ernie Irvin's exactly what this race team needed. He can get us back to the forefront. He wasn't hired to replace Davey Allison. He never had the attitude, I'm hired to replace. I'm just here to do a job as a driver, and that was our job as a race team. And there was a lot of repercussion about Ernie coming and driving that 28 car. The Allisons were not for it. They were very anti. They just didn't feel like Ernie was the right person, the right character. Let's face it, Ernie had a little bit of a rough road. He was probably not the most politically correct guy, but we needed somebody to drive this race car and win races. And I felt like I told Robert, I said, we're good people. We got a lot of good camaraderie. We surround him with that, he's going to be fine. And it couldn't have come any more truer. And, we immediately, it's like, good grief, this guy is so flippin' talented. Our first race together, I think we finished 5th at Darlington. We went somewhere else and had a really solid run. And then it was either the 3rd or the 4th race was Martinsville. And it was so hot that weekend. The September race, we had set on the pole. And once again, the Allisons were still not high on this whole deal. But it's like Robert and I, we got to make this work. We want everybody to have their hand in and go, we're good with this, but we've got some work to do. Go to Martinsville. It was week 3 or 4 of Ernie driving the 28 car. We sat on the pole and led 420-something laps and won the race. And I never will forget this either. As Ernie took the checkered flag and we were pitted all the way down at the end of pit road down toward turn 1. And he went around, and when he came down pit road to come down, because actually Victory Lane at that time was down in the turn 1 and 2 area. Oh. And I walked out on pit road, and I saw him coming down pit road, and he was just at the entrance. And there was a guy that was walking out there, and it's like, that's Bobby Allison. And Bobby walked out there and went like that. It's like, we're good now. This one's probably going to get me too. So Ernie gets to Victory Lane. Like I say, it's probably 90 degrees. I can't imagine how hot it was in that race car. And he was so give out he sat down beside the race car. If you look at a lot of our victory lane pictures, it's Robert and me and Ernie and Kim Irvin sitting beside the race car because he was just give out. But unannounced to Robert, unannounced to me, unannounced to Kim Irvin, our PR guy, Brian Vandercook, nobody. When he pulled his uniform top down, he had an In Memory of Davey Allison t-shirt on. It's like,
And wow, now knowing that he didn't plan that with anyone, that was just his own personal
put it on
tribute
in a private moment himself. You know, they
before
didn't wear
he knew
tire
he was gonna be
retardant
in
underwear.
Victory
None.
Lane.
He had that t-shirt. He may have had it on at Darlington. He may have had it on the other race, wherever it was.
Wow.
But you know, and Ernie didn't do it for everybody to go, oh, Ernie.
Of course not,
He,
no.
He did it because he really wanted to pay tribute to Davey Allison. And I knew right then, especially when I saw Bobby Allison walk out there and give him the thumbs up, it's like, you know what? The healing process has begun now. We're officially, we'll never ever forget Davey Allison. Heck, I still walk by my office and there's so many things in that office that's about Davey Allison. I think about it every single day. But we knew now we can move on. We can move forward and keep this healing process going.
Wow, that's amazing. Ernie is a special person. And like you said, too, when you know how hard-headed he is a little rough around the edges, yeah, it makes it even more special to think about him in a private moment choosing to make that tribute because, again, it just goes back to showing the family element of this sport and how much, you know, as much as your competitors, at the end of the day, it's
yeah,
a family.
Ernie was very adamant. He did not want to wear a uniform, nothing remotely like Davey's. They redesigned a completely different uniform. He even wanted something changed that had a different look about the car. We didn't go crazy, but the font of the number was a little different when Ernie started driving it than what it was with Davey. One had round corners, one had square corners. Just something to change it up because Ernie was adamant from day one. I am not here. Nobody can replace Davey Allison, but I want to drive a race car, and this is a good race car to drive. They need a driver, and that's what we're going to do.
Larry, I could ask you 1,000,001 questions because now we're in the Ernie Irvin era, and I just want to, you know, start on the next one, but I'll spare you your day. But when you, even just now, you talking about the names that you've already mentioned, doesn't even scratch the surface of some of the other drivers that you have worked alongside, grown with. You know, I mean, it's a list of Hall of Famers, truly.
Owners, drivers. Again, I go back to something I said earlier. To be that kid from Birmingham, that knowing going into my senior year, I was not going to go to college, so I took PE. They made me take English. I think I took woodwork and boys' food just to kind of get through it.
Who needs math?
Get this diploma. And trust me, I pinch myself every single day of my life. I count my blessings every single day.
Well, Larry, I love asking my guests this question because I talk to so many race fans at the track, at places like this all the time. And it makes me sad how many times a fan will tell me, you know, when I ask who their favorite driver is, and they'll tell me, well, I don't really have one anymore. You know, it was senior and then it was junior and then, you know, they just kind of trail off. And I mean, and I've even heard a lot of people say Davey growing up, and then that they never knew how to really bounce back and fall in love with somebody again. And so the reason I lay all that out is because we do have so many great up and coming talented people, both incredible personalities and incredible behind the wheel, that we just need to start highlighting them more. And the reason I say that too is because I want to know, like, for you, I've asked Ron Hornaday, I've asked Ray Evernham, if you were going to look at a race fan and say your next favorite driver should be this person, is there somebody that you would recommend that people check out?
I could probably think about it and come up with a short list, but knee-jerk answer, when I look at talent, when I look at age, when I look at his personality, when I look at so many things about him that you could grow with, you could be a fan of his probably for 20 years because he just turned 19 years old. This Connor Zilic is the real deal. He is the real deal. Now, I will say this. If you're looking for someone that's already winning in Cup and he's still going to be here probably for a while, he's winning races, he has won a championship, Ryan Blaney just gets it. He just gets it. You'd be hard-pressed to find anybody in the garage area that he races against that would say anything bad about Ryan Blaney. Now, Ryan Blaney, 6 years ago, it's like, we're going to interview Ryan Blaney. Why don't we just pick up the phone and interview a dial tone? He has grown immensely, and he gets it. He understands the importance of the race fan, and he's still young. He's going to be here for a while. So if you really want somebody you can watch grow, and I promise you we're going to be talking about him a long time, probably well after I'm out of the sport, Connor Zilic, but just for a guy right now currently that's already winning races, probably going to contend for the championship this year, Ryan Blaney just gets it.
I love the way you lay that out about he just gets it, because being a race car driver in the Cup Series is way more than just driving that car.
Oh, that's just a small chunk of it.
That's just the tip of the iceberg there, because you and I both know there's so much more to that. And there are drivers that embrace that, and there are some that still have to figure that out. So I'm glad that you laid it out that way, because somebody like a Ryan Blaney, I agree. Anytime I work with him, he understands that there's a bigger picture out there. This isn't about him.
Right.
This is a greater
And his
than
teammate, Joey Logano, is another one, but I don't know how much longer Joey's going to do it. I mean, Joey by no means is old.
Right.
But Joey is another one. Joey, honestly, Joey's a phenomenal race car driver. Joey really reminds me a lot of Davey Allison. He's very personable. He understands the fan concept. Davey Allison, maybe it's because of the way he was brought up by Bobby. Davey Allison was unbelievable with the race fans. Just another quick short story.
Please.
He had gotten hurt at Bristol in the spring race of 92, busted a bunch of ribs, had wrecked down in 3 and 4. He was hurt so bad the next week was North Wilkesboro. And he was wearing rib supports and flak jackets and everything else. And to the point that we actually got Jimmy Hensley to practice and qualify the car. Davey got in there and ran just a few laps on Saturday and had started at the rear of the field. And hot this day, I mean, another one of those days in April, just super hot, humid. And Davey eventually by halfway had taken the lead of the race. And poor Jimmy Hensley was standing in those pits, 90 degrees, helmet under his arm, in a uniform. And I looked at Jimmy and I said, Jimmy, cannot tell you how much I appreciate what you've done. He ain't getting out of that car. I can tell you that right now. He is not getting out. We went on and won the race. If you look at our victory lane photos from Wilkesboro in 92, it's Davey, all the race team, poor Jimmy Hensley standing there in a generic fire suit, get his picture made with us. Anyhow, where I'm going with this, won the race. We go over in the garage area. We spend 2 hours going through inspection, post-race inspection. I mean, there's basically nobody's left there. As we're just about to take the car off jack stands and load it, I look out on pit road, and Davey was actually staying at our house. Liz wasn't even up, I don't think. I looked out on pit road. What is that out there? He had pulled his pickup truck out on pit road and was sitting up in the back of his pickup truck, and he signed autographs for the better part of 2 hours to everybody till they were gone. There was no other fans there. Most drivers were already probably back at home, had already had dinner, but that was Davey Allison. Here, a guy that could barely get in and out of the race car, sat there for 2 hours and signed autographs for fans. But that was Davey Allison.
Ugh, that just speaks so much to who he is. And again, thank you for sharing these stories, because even somebody like me who is so invested in the sport and the history and the people who paved the way, I didn't know Davey. And
Yeah.
so for you to share these stories, it does so much to not only keep his memory alive,
Yeah.
but to teach me and the next phase of race fans who these people really were beyond just the statistics or the NASCAR Classics race, they can watch. Like, these were real people. And it's moments like that that built the way for us to have moments like we can have
No,
now.
if NASCAR came to me and said, we want you to talk to a room full of young up and coming drivers and talk to them about how they need to handle themselves, what they need to do above and beyond driving a race car, first thing I'd do is get a PowerPoint presentation on Davey Allison and put his picture on the wall. And it's like, here's who you need to mimic.
This is the blueprint.
This is what you need to do outside the race car. Yeah, what you do inside, it's important, but what you do outside, especially today, that's become about as important as what you do inside the race car.
And every single one of those drivers, no one would argue with you. They would say, absolutely, tell me everything I need to know
I'd
to be Davey
so.
Allison.
I'd like to think so.
I believe, if they're smart. If they're smart. Larry, this might be kind of a weird question. And again, for time, don't feel like you have
Sure.
to. But I'm thinking about your career and some of the decisions you've had to make. And crew chiefs have to make a lot of choices. That's part of your job. You're a professional decision maker. But that is always kind of for somebody else. You're making a decision for the greater good of the team, and it's a little more methodical with working on a car and mechanics. How did that play into some of the decisions that you had to make personally for yourself? And is there a decision that maybe you look back on, I don't want to say regrets, but that you remember so strongly how difficult it was to make?
Yeah, I've made 2 career decisions that was very, very hard to make. I don't regret either one of them, but I may have done different. And I'll probably might want to make sure you're holding on to that seat when I tell you the second one. But the first one was leaving Robert Yates Racing and going to Richard Childress Racing. It had nothing to do with Richard Childress. It had nothing to do with Dale Earnhardt. I mean, my gosh, I was able to win a Daytona 500 with Dale. Richard Childress is as good a person as you'll find. Treated me phenomenal, treated my family phenomenal the 4 years I was with him. But it was hard to leave Robert Yates Racing. That was my family. Davey Allison was my best friend. Robert Yates was right there with him. And leaving Robert Yates Racing had nothing to do with performance. Hell, in 1996, with the 2 race teams, we won 6 races. Dale Jarrett contended for the championship. But I think everything that I had been through mentally with losing Davey, built this team back up, contending for a championship in 94, and Ernie hits the wall in a practice crash at Michigan in August that year. Mentally, I was wore out. And then physically, I became wore out because if I have one bad fault, I almost think saying no is a bad word, and I should learn to go, no's not a bad word. But Robert came to me when he decided to start the second team, the 88 team, and he said, here's the deal. You're still going to be the crew chief of the 28 car, but I need you to get this 88 team up and going. I need you to make sure these 2 teams stay pulled together and tied together. And okay, I'll do brain surgery once if somebody will let me try it, see if it works. Robert took phenomenal care of me financially. It wasn't a matter of that. But by the time the latter part of 1996 came, I was wore out. Because I'd been the crew chief of the 28 car. We brought Ernie back from his injuries, built this 88 team. But the analogy I give, I felt like somebody that had 2 extension cords that kept them plugged in, but unless I kept both hands on them, they'd pop apart. There was no slack in neither cord. I just was wore out. And about the time I was feeling that way, here comes Richard Childress and Dale Earnhardt courting me. And I don't regret it, but I look back now and go, if I'd have stayed at Robert Yates Racing, maybe between Doug and I, we could still have Robert Yates Racing going today. So,
Wow.
Not a regret, but definitely look back over my shoulder. Second one, leaving, becoming a crew chief, and getting into TV.
Really?
Don't get me wrong, Jesse. I love what I do. I've been doing it 25 years. But you'll relate to this as much as anybody. As a crew chief, my career path was determined on my success. You know what? If I won races and I contended for championships and had fast race cars, I didn't need anybody to tell me I was doing good. Quite honestly, I didn't care if anybody cared if I did good. All I cared about was the stopwatch, the race results, the qualifying results, at the end of the year, the points results. And I knew as long as those looked good, I didn't have to worry. In today's world, I have to worry about TV executives.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if I work morning, noon, and night. If the fans love me to the end of the earth. If an executive makes the decision, we want to try something new, I got a new penny I want to try, doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. I don't regret it. I don't regret it. I mean, how in the hell could I regret it? I've been doing it over a third of my life, but I might have done that different. I might have done it different. The 15 years I had with DW Mike Joy, I will treasure until my ashes come out of an incinerator. But you're not at the mercy of necessarily what you do or how hard you work or how committed or how dedicated you are. If a TV executive says, I believe I want to try something different, he's going to try something different. And you'll relate to that as much as me.
I can so relate to that. Truly. It's one of the hardest, I mean, like you said, because you can work your ass off and you can do the best that you can do.
And the fans can love you to the end of the earth.
Yep.
But it doesn't matter.
Your fate isn't in your hands. Mm-mm. And yeah, I relate to that. That's a lot of why I do this, because I feel like I'm in control of telling people's stories. And yeah, it's a different feeling. I can understand where you're coming from.
In what I do as far as my TV work, I have to work really hard at it, because when you've been off the pit box for 25 years, trying to keep up with this sport, it's
few things
it's a
have
vertical
changed
mountain.
In those years.
It's one reason I was so gratified that Richard Childress came to me and had me go do the Jeffrey Earnhardt Xfinity car at Talladega, that Jordan Anderson, my son-in-law, has had me come do some races. It's kept me connected and helped me understand. And if I'm at that racetrack, I'm in that garage area, because I want to make sure I'm not overlooking anything, because there's a lot can be overlooked. We're not like football. You can walk away from football for 6 months and come back and you don't have to worry about nothing changing.
Same sport.
Everything's going to be the same about it.
You just can't celebrate in the end zone anymore.
You walk away, yeah. You walk away from racing NASCAR for 6 weeks. You'll come back and they'll have 6 tires and wheels on it, and you won't know, how did this happen? When did this happen? It evolves, not year to year, not month to month, but race to race. And I have to work hard at it, but I pride myself in doing that. I really do.
It's funny you say that, and I won't elaborate too much, but that is so true. I get that question a lot from people. They say, how do you prepare for something? I said, well, you prepare, but you just got to live it. If you decide that you have a broadcast coming up and you're going to start prepping for it, you're behind.
Oh, yeah.
In racing, you have to just live it. And that is a tough thing. I mean, you go back to struggling to say no. It's then a tough balance to find this way of setting yourself up for success and being as well-rounded and knowledgeable as you can, but also knowing when to put some separation there.
I've already got 2 pages of notes for 2026. We still got 9 races to go, but I know 26 is dangling out there, just not too far down the road.
It's incredible. I have to ask about the booth. You mentioned working alongside Mike Joy and DW. And I mean, sorry, Dad. People tell me all the time how much they love you. Of course they do. They do. We all love you. But man, if people didn't love that booth right there. The mix of personalities. I mean, put us in there. How do you describe what it was? We heard you guys, but what was the environment inside of the booth?
So Mike and Daryl and I knew each other, and we actually did one race together back in 2000 when Mike was doing play-by-play for TNT, and Daryl and I would go up there and be a guest. Our boxes would have guest on it, you know.
Guest one and guest
So
two.
we had done a race together. But honestly, Jesse, we went to Daytona in 2001, and we had no idea what to expect. But I almost go back to what I was telling you about that first test with Davey Allison. We went to Daytona, and that's when we were down there. It was truly speed weeks. We were there about a week and a half. And I remember
Yeah, you moved down to Daytona at that point.
We went
yeah.
to that booth to do that first practice session, and it's like we had no idea what to expect. And I remember when those cars started piling out of that garage area to line up on pit road for practice, I went, what have I done? This is not right. I'm not down there. But it didn't take long, even into that practice session. Almost like couldn't wait to find a phone to call Linda to tell her about Davey Allison. I couldn't wait to find a phone and tell her about Mike Joy and Darrell Waltrip and myself. It just clicked. It clicked from the get-go. But I got to give credit to David Hill, the chairman of Fox Sports, that put this package together. David Hill hammered on Mike and Darrell and I about a lot. But two things he hammered hard on us. He looked at Mike and went, you are the play-by-play. You are not an analyst. They're the analyst. You're the play-by-play. Larry, you are not a driver analyst. Nobody wants to hear you talk about driving off in the corner at 200 miles an hour. You know why? You never did it. Couldn't argue.
That's fair.
DW, nobody wants to hear you talk about 4 tires, 2 tires, or strategy. You know why? You've never done it. You're the host, you're the play-by-play, you're the crew chief analyst, and you're the driver analyst, and that's the way it better stay.
Stay
and
in
I
your
feel like
lanes.
for 15 years, we stayed in our lane.
Mm-hmm.
We never bled across each other. The other thing that David told us, he told us a lot. Sometimes I felt like I was drinking through a fire hose. But he told us 3 things. You've got to tell the story. You've got to tell the story. You've got to tell why. You've got to tell the viewer why. And the most important thing, and this is the Fox way of life, you better have fun doing it. Because if you're not having fun, that means your viewer's not having fun. Now, we might have struggled with those others periodically, but we never struggled with having fun. And I don't toot my own horn, Jesse. I really don't, even down to the downplaying the Larry Mack America's crew chief. I just don't go down that road. But I say this with confidence. They can try any booth they want to try. They can bring this driver in, this crew chief in. They're not going to duplicate those 15 years. They're just not. Mm-hmm. I go back today because during the Fox part of the season, they will re-air maybe a race from 2005, 2006, and I'll sit and watch it on FS1 or FS2. It's like, damn, we just finished each other's sentences. Mm-hmm. Mike would start a sentence, DW would finish it. Darrell would start a sentence, I'd finish it. It's like, damn. That worked.
Well, you have to believe it goes back to you saying that you went in there not sure what you're doing. You kind of went in there with just this like vulnerability.
Clueless.
And both you and DW, and Mike Joy is obviously Mike Joy, but this understanding of working together, you guys were all willing to be vulnerable in that moment. Yeah. And through that, you grew together over those 15 years
well,
to the point where you were
It's almost like the chemistry with Davey and I. Can't fabricate it.
Right.
Can't sit down and go, we're going to have chemistry.
Yeah, we're besties.
You got to have it. But yeah, it gets stronger as time goes along. And trust me, Darrell and I especially, as rookies, well, one, our sport's backwards. Our biggest race of the year is the first race, the Daytona 500. I remember sitting in the production trailer, David Hill and Ed Gorin, second in command with Fox Sports, looked at DW and Mike and I 3 hours before the race and went, I'll clean it up. You 3, don't screw this up. It's like, oh, wow. I'm not sure that's what I needed to hear.
Yeah, great. No pressure. Have a great start to the season.
And we were thrown to the deep end of the pool in race 1. We had an amazing Daytona 500, probably one of the best 500s we'd had in years until turn 4 of the final lap.
Well, how no one can prepare for something like that ever, much less being in a position where you have to cover that and already being out of your comfort zone, what do you remember most from being in the booth during those moments?
2 things worked in Daryl in my favor. 3 things, really, especially for Daryl. One, Michael had won the race, Michael's first Cup win. But the other 2 things that worked in our favor, thank God, is we had a long red flag and we were way over our airtime, way over. We did a pretty quick off, thank God.
Yeah, that's a God
The other
thing right
thing,
there.
Mike Joy.
Yeah.
Mike Joy looked at Daryl and I got it. You know, and it's like, let him have it. I have, you know, Daryl and I are looking at turn 4, and not only is it a driver, great friend of mine, great friend of DW's. Daryl drove for Dale. I worked with Dale. Thank God for Mike Joy. You know, he taught us quickly, you know, we don't speculate, we don't guess, we simply state the facts, and that's what we stay with. It's like, Mike, you guide this ship, man. We're out. We're just going to sit on the side. Thank goodness for him.
That's another testament to why Mike Joy is who he is and has the respect that he
He
does.
knew all the right things to say. Just nailed it.
And that's just another great example, too, of you getting to learn the art of broadcasting from somebody like Mike Joy, but not always in the moments of him saying, here's the lesson I'm giving you. It's through watching the way that he was able to keep composure and watching the way that he handled things that it's a weird blessing that you got to be with someone to learn how to handle those moments. And good for Mike for having that strength at that time.
Yeah, Mike taught Daryl and I so many things, and we didn't adhere to it 100%. You know, Mike would tell us periodically, we're not radio. We don't have to talk nonstop. Sometimes we can just let the pictures tell the tale.
Hey, can you say that again, Larry? One more time?
It's not radio. We don't have to talk.
Let it breathe,
Once in a
baby,
while,
let it breathe.
just let the pictures tell the tale.
Pacing is huge.
And he would tell us periodically, sometimes with our viewers, less is more. Less is more.
It's very true. You talking about the going into the booth and not really knowing what to do. I think it kind of goes back to our conversation before we really started this about authenticity and race fans really appreciating authenticity. And that was probably a lot of the start of that magic too, was just people appreciated you guys being in there and not being the professional, know-it-all, experienced broadcasters. There was this relatability and authenticity to having just guys that are race fans, that have raced, that have the experience being around cars up in the booth, just like you said, having fun. And that is so important when you're trying to teach people about everything that our sport entails. It's about that broadcast is so important. And the reason I tee all this up too is because I'm really curious about your perspective on the format of broadcasting now. I'm not necessarily asking for you to, give me an opinion on the talent. I just mean, what do you think about how much this has changed? I mean, we are looking at a completely different playground when it comes to how NASCAR is bringing themselves to the viewers.
Yeah, it's like walking on a razor blade. You know, you and I were talking before we started taping. You know, we're trying to cater to hardcore, long-time viewers that's been here for years. We're trying to cater to a casual fan that's just getting to kind of understand NASCAR. And then we're maybe catering to somebody that's never even watched NASCAR. And if we don't find that balance, it's not going to work. And it is trying to find a balance. But, I'm 66 years old. I've been in the sport 45 years. But I think one thing that has helped me survive is I'm not afraid of change. Robert Yates taught me a lot about that. Because when I was Robert's crew chief in the 90s, we were getting rule changes from NASCAR weekly, sometimes 2 a week. And Robert, I'd lose my mind, start throwing crap, cleaning my desk off. Robert go, we're going to figure it out. He always told me the person that embraces change, that's the people that's going to prevail. The people that don't are going to fall by the wayside. And I still try to follow that today. And as much as it was probably really nice and convenient that for all those years we were on 2 major networks, we had to go and try some other stuff. It was a necessity. And I like what we've got in a lot of ways right now, and I think it's only going to get better. I think the CW having the Xfinity Series from Daytona to the last race of the year, I think that's one reason we're seeing the ratings what they are. Consistency. I think those 5 races on Amazon Prime, streaming them, I know it was tough for people to embrace, but it ended up being 5 really good broadcasts, I thought. And we got to embrace change. You know, we hate change. We're creatures of habit, especially when everything's going great. Why do we want to change? You've got to.
Yeah, I mean, NASCAR fans especially hate
personally
hate
and
change.
professionally.
They wanted to slide the numbers up, and everybody said, calm down. Pitchforks went up. I mean, look at that. Like, the NASCAR fans of any fan base hates change. So I think for you to lay it out like that and say, look, as a sport, to grow, we're going to have to embrace change.
As a sport, as a business, you have to.
Yeah.
You absolutely have to.
And unfortunately, that has to come with a lot of trust in yourself and in the future and the people around you. But to the lesson that you're teaching is that it's worth it.
Well, I do a number of keynote speeches a year, and a lot of it revolves around leadership. A lot of it revolves around embracing change, because it's to a lot of corporations that have managers and all, and it's hard. But, you know, the one thing I say about change is it'd be nice to know everything that you change is going to be positive. Ain't happening. I'd love to, if everything I tried on a race car was a positive change, I'd have won a hell of a lot more in 23 races, I promise you. When I was a crew chief and a competitor in that garage area, I didn't give a damn if there were 5 people sitting in the stands. Whatever helped me win races. That's all I cared about. I didn't care about TV ratings. I'm being honest. I didn't care if there were 6 people or 6 million people in the stands. What would help old Larry Mack win races? And I think you got to be careful with the competitors sometime. I think it's good to listen. I always love what Bill France said. Now, again, we don't live in that era. Bill France always said, the drivers don't like it. That's exactly what we need to do then.
I love it. Larry, I can't thank you enough.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm not quite done with you yet, but I do want to say quickly that I appreciate you doing this so much, because I know you. And this is not what you usually do. Like I said when we started this, you sit down and you talk about other drivers. And you tell stories about your career and your past, but it's always your perspective of this greater event. So I just really appreciate you being vulnerable and sitting down and talking about yourself, because I know that that's not always the easiest thing to do. So thank you for giving us that insight.
But if one person listens to this, watches this, and it makes a difference in their life, whether it's dealing with grief, whether it's dealing with change, whether it's not giving up on your dream, if one person, that makes a difference, you know what? I'm fulfilled. If more than one, then that's just a bonus. I say that when I do those motivational speeches. At the end, I close it out always the same, whether there's 20 people in the room or 250 people. If something I said today makes a difference in one person's career, their life, personally, professionally, my goal was accomplished. If more than one benefits from it, that's just great too.
It's exactly why we all do this podcast. So thank you for being a part of it. Before I let you go, I have one last segment that I do it with all my guests.
Okay.
It's called Long Story Short, because you know me and you
Well,
know my father.
Too.
Yeah. And long story short means get comfortable. But I say that because you're in charge now. Your answers can be as long or as short as possible. You make them what you want to make them. There's no rules. No rules here, Larry Mack.
Okay. I love no rules.
Perfect.
I've dealt with rules my whole life.
All right, 3 questions. First question, when was the last time you cried?
during this podcast not too long ago. When we started talking about Davey Allison, no matter how many times I tell the story and I go, you know what, it's going to be easier this time. It never gets easier.
Nope.
But I've got to say, the last time I really probably broke down and cried was probably about 8 months ago when our youngest daughter, Kendall, her and Jordan, her husband, came to us and said they were expecting their first child. That's our baby. Oh. Yeah, it was emotional when Brooke, our oldest, told us she was expecting Caden. Brandon and Alex was expecting Remy, but this is the little girl I used to take to Daytona in July for a father-daughter trip, and would go down to the beach to the little vendors and buy her a pet turtle. And now she's having a baby. And
you feel like you blinked and that happened.
Oh, I'm telling you, yeah.
My dad tells stories like that.
I cried when she went to Georgia, but I cried when she told me she was going to have her first child.
Which one did you cry harder at? You don't have to answer that. I know. I get you.
Probably cried harder when she went to Georgia because she went there, and the same year Kirby Smart left Alabama and went to Georgia.
Oh, geez.
So they took my defensive coordinator and took my daughter.
That's a tough year. Dang. I'm sorry you had to go through that. I really am. Question number 2. When was the last time that you did something that you just remember feeling an immense amount of pride in what you accomplished?
Immense amount of pride in what I accomplished. Oh, that's a tough one. I would probably say, Fox pulled me off the road headed into 2019 and put me in the studio, the Charlotte studio, because of pre-race stuff and post-race stuff and in-race stuff. So I was in the studio 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, and 24, 6 years. They decided to put me back on the road this year. And I think when that checkered flag waved at North Wilkesboro, I felt a huge sense of accomplishment. I felt like I was back in my element. I felt like I was able to do a much better job because I was at that racetrack, in that garage area. So maybe that's a little bit disjointed sense of a pride and accomplishment, but felt good to be back at that racetrack. I know when I went to Linda, after they had told me they wanted to put me back on the road, and I said, back with Fox, but they want to put me back on the road. I said, what do you think? She said, Larry, I've loved having you at home. She said, I'm going to miss seeing you back on the road, but she said, I know where your happy place is. That's at the racetrack. So probably that first year, after those years of being back in the studio, being back at the racetrack.
That's a great thing to be proud of.
Yeah.
That's absolutely
Felt like
valid.
I don't even know how I did it those 6 years and not be at the racetrack, but I made it work.
Well, I'll tell you, there were a lot of other people, a lot of race fans that were excited to see you back at the racetrack too. So
I'll tell you one other sense of accomplishment, and it has to do with something I did with Jeff Burton. The 5 TNT races this year. TNT, because of the in-season challenge, decided to try something that had never been done with NASCAR, and that was an alt cast. And kind of like Daytona in 2001 when Mike and Daryl and Jeff and I went to the studios in Atlanta, that first race. It was Atlanta. It's like, what in the hell have we got into? But I've got to say, those 5 weeks with Jeff and doing an alt cast, something that has never been done before in NASCAR, felt pretty darn cool when we went off there with that 5th one, because we felt like we had only got better every week, and just felt like, okay, we can always be better, but it came off pretty good for year 1 because we were in virgin territory.
Talk about a lesson in trying something new and trusting in it. Yeah. I mean, look at the success that had. I remember the first time when you guys popped into the broadcast and you were kind of updating us from what you guys have been talking about. And I'm sitting there thinking, oh man, if I could be a fly on the wall in that room. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I can. I got to just turn over to your simulcast. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but that was a layer of accessibility that so many people just embraced because
more than I anticipated.
Oh my gosh, it goes back to talking about the booth. There was Fun was the priority. You guys you were broadcasters, but at the end of the day, he was in there as a former driver and you were in there as a crew chief, and you guys were both in there as friends, just watching a race.
Totally took the concept. We're like two guys sitting in a bar or sitting in the living room having a beer, and we're just watching this race and critiquing. And we were able to go deeper into things than the broadcast could. We had these guests that called in, and it wasn't just NASCAR guests. We had Chipper Jones, who's a huge NASCAR fan. We had Cletus
awesome.
McFarland. You know, we were able to do stuff off the wall because that's what an altcast is about. It's not just about the X's and O's of the race lap by lap. It's stepping outside the box.
I'm really glad you guys did that.
Yeah,
it was cool.
fun.
It was cool. I'm excited to see where that, what becomes of that. We'll see.
We'll see.
We'll see. All right, final question. What is one piece of media? It can be a podcast, a TV show, a song, a website, any piece of media that you would recommend that our viewers check out. Something that you like.
I like the documentaries that's been done. You know, the one that's been done, about the playoffs. The one that they did that Prime did on the Earnhardts.
Oh,
because I think if you're a casual fan, if you watch those documentaries, whether it's about the sport, whether it's about an individual, whether it's about, the Earnhardts, you will get more engaged because it teaches you a lot about the history. I mean, I lived a lot of that Earnhardt stuff, but I was mesmerized watching the four of them. And, they were hour, 10 minutes. It seemed like it went by in about 10 minutes. So I would say if you're trying to learn about NASCAR, you're trying to become more engaged, any type of documentary that you can watch is going to be good because I've been here 45 years and I watch them and I love them.
I
love podcasts too, by the way.
Well, I was going to ask if you're listening to podcasts. Obviously, I know this one's your favorite.
Absolutely.
Of course.
Absolutely.
Yes. Rolling with the Punches, Larry McReynolds' favorite podcast. You heard it here first. He endorses that. No, but I had a friend of my mom's. Funny enough, she was actually my principal when I was in elementary and middle school. Call me up or text me or DM me or something. No NASCAR knowledge, no race fan knowledge, but she watched the Earnhardt documentary on Prime, and she is begging to go to a race.
Exactly.
She asked me so many questions about who she should follow, and she knows nothing about cars. And I'm taking her to Bristol, and it's just really cool to see people.
To me, it just shows such a different angle of the sport and history to some degrees. More kind of like the altcast, a lot more than just the X's and O's of the racing. I would highly recommend it.
Because the takeaway from that is that this woman knows nothing about cars, nothing about the sport, nothing about any of that, but she learned about these people, and it made an impact on her. And just getting to know the qualities of these people brought her in, drew her into wanting to know who else is in this? What else is involved in that? And that's, like we both agree, why it's so important to put the people
probably
first.
If you're trying to learn the positive side of the sport, I'd probably stay off of X because there's people on X, haters just hate.
Just in general, stay
Haters
off of
just
X.
say-
So I haven't been on X since it was Twitter.
Oh, really?
I'm
Okay.
scared. I'm scared to go back. It's been so long. I'm afraid. It's like that. It's like the junk drawer that you just threw everything in, and now you have to reopen it. I don't want to do
See,
that.
I use it to promote the sport. I don't use it to fight with people. I don't even really use it to put my opinion out there. It's like, I use it every weekday to promote our own track show that Danielle and I do, Fox part of the season. I use it to promote what we're doing throughout the weekend during that all-cast, who's going to be joining Jeff Burton and I today. Really use it to try to promote the sport. And I welcome questions. I get a lot of questions. Once again, if you're looking for a fight, I'm not your guy. I am not your guy. But if you got a decent question, I'll do my best to answer it.
And if you're gonna say it on X, come say it to my face.
But they won't.
Yeah,
They're in
they
their
won't.
mom's basement, and they will not leave.
Larry Mack, thank you. I know you said that you don't like to toot your own horn, so thanks for letting us collectively toot your horn
appreciate it.
together.
I've
I'll toot your horn any day, Larry
thoroughly
Mack.
enjoyed this. I love telling the stories of my career, and it brings back a lot of memories sometimes when I kind of put them back out there and talk about them and tell them.
Well, and we saw you on Top of the Box in 22 and again in 24, so it seems like we'll see you again in 26 if we're lucky.
Maybe
Seems to be the
just never
pattern.
know.
It's like Joey Logano every 2 years or whatever. Yeah, we can only be so lucky. I didn't mention this before the interview because I kind of, like I said, wanted to let it speak for itself and didn't want to make everything about me. But I do feel like I can't let this go without saying this, and that is that Larry McReynolds is truly one of my favorite people that I've ever worked with in this sport for a lot of reasons. But one of the biggest things that stands out to me is that I've been working with Larry Mack for years now. I was fortunate enough when I first came into NASCAR, 2018 was my first full season with NASCAR. We started working together then, and I was as green gets when it comes to being an on-air, talent or personality or whatever you want to call it. But Larry Mack never, ever treated me as anything but his equal. And even though I'm sitting, across from him at desks and doing interviews, and I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, I'm sitting with Larry McReynolds. Like, I know him personally, but holy cow, this is like one of the best in the biz when it comes to what we're doing here. He never looked at me like I was anything but just another coworker. He never treated me like I was anything but worthy of the respect that he gave me. And that really meant a lot to me, means a lot to me, and will always stick with me. So thank you, Larry, for the kindness and respect that you've shown me over the years. And for all of you listening, I hope that you're able to really take that away from this interview as well. I also quickly want to say, coming out of that interview, what stands out to me, and I want to relay it again, is just a reminder to tell the people in your life that you love them. I know that sounds really simple, but I think that there are a lot of times that we miss opportunities to remind people that we love them, whether it's because we assume that they already know that, or we are scared. I don't know what the reason is, but the reason doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, love, it's all we have, and we need each other. And as much as it is you telling somebody else that you have this love for them, it's reminding them how much they are loved. So whatever life, may throw our way, it's important to tell people you love them, because if you do, then you'll never wonder if they do that. So before I wrap this up, this shirt that I'm wearing this week, this incredible Davey Allison vintage t-shirt, phenomenal. This was sent to me totally unexpectedly in the mail. A buddy of mine, Chad Bearden, he is kind of an internet friend that I've made through the podcasting space. He sent this to me because he knows I love vintage clothing, and means a lot, Chad. So thank you. And with that, I will tell you guys that I love you. And I'll also tell you guys to follow us on social media. We've got it all. We got TikTok, we got Instagram, we got YouTube, because you know that, because you're watching it on there already. But when you go check us out, do all those things that you do when you have a favorite podcast, like and comment and subscribe and, tell us you love us, all the good stuff. Mom, thank you so much for listening. I love you so much. Thank you all for listening. I don't know if I mentioned it, but I love you so much. And to send you off into this off season, in the wise words of my mother, just don't be a dumbass, okay? Bye, y'all. Love you.